And hello, everybody. This is the Services Cooperative Association podcast with your host, Jerry Cooper, president and founder of CDC Integrated Services, and me, Elliot Howard. I am the current chairman of the Services Cooperative Association. And we are dedicated to the task of mentorship and development of business owners and professionals throughout the greater Houston area. In fact, that's in our charter. And every Wednesday, you need to come. We have our CrossRoads Business Building Breakfast at 9311 I-10, aka the Katy Freeway, located inside the Corner Bakery. And will you meet me and Jerry Cooper, as well as the founder of the Services Cooperative Association, Dean Green. And it's more than just a networking opportunity. It actually is meant as a workshop to develop your skill sets as a business owner, and even translates over into being a business professional, because you're still gonna, even if you're not a business owner, if you want to be a department manager and beyond, running organizations and projects within the company, the skills that you learn within the Services Cooperative Association translate even into that. So it's good to have that type of experience that you can pull from to get that advice, and then make certain career moves that you need to make, utilizing the new skills. So today, we are going to have a news topic discussion, and then it's going to blend it into a lesson. And the news topic of the day has been one that's been interested. I've been interested in over the last couple of weeks. It did come to a head with coming before Congress, but it's the matter of, I believe, a fallout of still everything that's been going on within the economy since the COVID lockdowns and such, being the fact that the railroads had been threatening to strike, and because of certain issues within the labor and all. And so it's been batted around between Congress and the president, as well as the corporations that run the railroads. So this is going to be something we want to talk about. And then we'll also turn it into parts of the lesson that we will also be discussing here on the show. So Jerry, thanks for joining us today. And how's everything been going for you?
Everything's doing very well. We had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. All the family lives locally, so no one had to travel, and no one had to miss the holiday because of travel-related issues. So we have 3 children and 3 grandchildren, and so we shared the day with all the kids and the grandkids and the in-laws and relatives, and it was a wonderful time. And so it's one of those rare days when everybody was well, no one was sick, and they were able to come to my younger daughter's house. She hosted this year, and fun was had by all, and nobody got into a fight.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, let's face it, it's hard to fight when there's good food around, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Just focus on the meals. The mashed potatoes still taste great.
That's right.
I will commit a foul to all the Southerners down there. The pumpkin pie, not the sweet potato, was spectacular. Now there actually might be a fight for that. The sweet potato versus pumpkin pie. I have Southern in-laws, so so let the debating begin. But mine was good too, nevertheless. So we were talking when we met at the CrossRoads Business Building Breakfast this past Wednesday. We had entered into a discussion about the topic that's really been, at that time, had been batted around between president and Congress. It really was the whole issue of the unions, the train unions, and like come to find out, there's like several different types of railroad unions. It's not just one massive monolith. It's several different groups, but all like joined together, wanting to strike because of certain labor issues that they wanted to have rectified that has not been rectified. And so they were threatening to strike until they get what they wanted. And I think when it comes to politics, politicians have the luxury of something that those of us in business don't really have, which is the luxury of being able to play the blame game without solving an issue. Whereas in business, no, well, I mean, okay, so you're blaming somebody, but the problem still exists, so we still got to fix this. So let's go ahead and get this taken care of. And then we can assign the blame later if that's really what we want to do. Let's fix the problem. So now at this point, I think because it's at this stage of the week where we're having this podcast, it has finally come before Congress. I don't know if there actually has been a vote as to what they're going to do going forward, but you might actually have some more information on that. And you're well more versed about this subject than I am, because we were talking about it back on Wednesday. So,
Well, yes, and I follow it because of my training and my background, and the president punted it to Congress, and Congress enacted legislation forcing the unions to accept the latest offer that was on the table. And to pick up on the discussion that we had last week, that's always a disappointing thing to see happen, because let's start with the principle that organized labor, members of the union, have a right to strike.
mm-hmm.
And 4 of the 12 unions felt that they weren't being heard adequately.
Mm-hmm.
And so they rejected the offer that was on the table. At the core of this dispute was additional paid sick leave. Now, I'm not versed enough in the details to recall whether it was how many days they were actually asking for, but the subject was sick leave. And that's something they felt important enough to argue over to the point of strike. Now, accept at the very beginning of this discussion that unions have the right to strike.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the rights they have, the freedoms they have, the liberty they have under the union contract. It is by law, but they are allowed to, permitted to do. So there's no question about that. The whole issue becomes complicated by a number of factors that that I agree with and some I don't. For example, I agree that when you reach an impasse, you have to negotiate in good faith to make sure that that impasse is successfully overcome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the railroad companies increased wages significantly by 25% because of the inflationary impact on wages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, many corporations, the vast majority of corporations in the United States have increased wages by nowhere near 25%.
Right.
I mean, the railroads were very, very generous in saying,
Mhm.
yes, there have been consequences that we have to deal with from a wage, from an impact on the wages that has been very adverse to the employees, the union members. So a 25% increase is a dramatic increase. And so, and the companies offered, I think the companies offered 1 or 2 days of sick leave. And I'm in that camp that says you got almost all of what you needed.
Right.
Okay. And here you had 4 unions that said, well, almost is not enough. We want it all.
Right.
And I think that's where the fairness went out the window. Okay.
Right.
They got a lot of what they asked for in the negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the principles of the negotiations is everybody gets something from the negotiations. Okay.
Right.
And at this point, when you started going in beyond a certain trigger, companies began to see themselves as being not treated equitably in the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so they dug their heels in, if you will. And I think that was reasonable on them to do, reasonable on their part to do that. At some point, you have to hold the line if you feel the line is legitimate. And these companies did. I mean, they made a lot of compromises that aren't being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the point that union employees work long, difficult hours,
Yes, they do.
and every reasonable accommodation needs to be made.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, where does your own responsibility take over? I'm not opposed to unions, but I am in the camp that the union contract isn't guaranteed, isn't to guarantee you a safe landing every time you get into trouble.
Mhm.
Contract isn't to guarantee a safe landing when things go wrong,
Right.
either in the work environment or in your own life.
Mhm.
I've always lived with a philosophy that I have to have the ability to take care of myself. If I can't take care of myself, I can't take care of the family. So,
Right.
so am I in a position to do all I need to do? If I am, then I can take care of not only myself, but my family.
Mhm.
Not only when everything works right, but when things start to not work right.
Right.
I have never lost sleep over the fact that I might get sick.
Mhm.
When I was starting in my career,
Mhm.
I worked for a company that had both vacation and sick leave,
Right.
but it was the unstated rule that sick leave was for traumatic experiences. If you got a cold and come to work,
Mhm.
okay, that you couldn't, they didn't mind if you stayed home
Mhm.
because they didn't want you to infect your fellow employees.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But the unwritten rule is this: you're expected to have the wherewithal to stay home on your own. You're not supposed to sock the company with sick leave for a cold or a flu. That's
Mhm.
when you have a heart attack or you break a leg or something serious.
Right.
Okay, so it wasn't written in the policy that sick leave was not to be used for things like colds and trips to the dentist or anything like that. It was just expected if you needed to stay home with it because you had a cold or the flu, you stayed home and you
Right.
paid for that out of your pocket. And then if you went to the dentist, you paid for that out of your pocket
Mhm.
in terms of the day off. Not typically, yeah, back in those days, your insurance covered that for you in terms of the procedures itself.
Right.
What's covered has changed over the years. Some used to be in, is now out. Some that was out is now in, but that's a different subject.
Mhm.
The point being is that if you had to go to the doctor to fix it, to take care of your illness, or you had to go see the eye doctor to get new glasses, whatever that is, that was out of pocket.
Right.
Even though you had sick leave, the unstated rule was take care of what you need to take care of with your wages and save the sick leave for when you truly are unable to come into work.
Right.
Well, that distinction has gotten lost over time.
Mhm.
And about 25 years ago, sick leave got abused a lot.
I remember that because I had to manage that.
Yeah.
I had to manage through that with the
Okay.
employees that
I
I had.
mean, if you had an out of town visitor come in
Mhm.
without notice, took sick leave to take time off with the out of town visitor. Or if you
Right.
wanted to go away for the weekend and you wanted to have a Friday and a Monday off, you called in sick
Right.
on Thursday, and therefore you were out of town Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and you showed up to work on Tuesday. Now
Right.
I'm exaggerating, but not by much. There was a lot of abuse of sick leave. People
Mhm.
basically saw that as a bank that they could use whenever they needed it to. And so a company says enough is enough. And so they merged vacation and sick leave and created PTO, personal time off. But in
Mhm.
some unions, like the railroad unions and the longshoremen unions, that merging never occurred. You've always had vacation. But
Mhm.
the number of sick days has gradually shrunk over years because it has been a source of absenteeism,
Yes, it
uncontrolled
has.
absenteeism.
Yes, it has.
And so there may be a lot of people who need the sick days, but the idea of sick days as a concept has been ruined by those who have abused it.
Mhm.
And it's too late to put that genie back in the bottle.
Right.
And so the railroad companies are extremely reluctant to start expanding sick days again because they're very much afraid it will get them back into the same productivity problems and absenteeism problems that they experienced 25 years ago.
Right.
And so while I'm greatly sympathetic toward unions' ability to strike, it's a fundamental freedom built into tradition and law.
Mhm.
I can't argue with that, but I think I'm in sympathy right now with the owners, the companies, because number one, we are in very difficult economic times, and for them
Right.
to have been willing to increase wages in an inflationary cycle speaks a lot to their willingness to work constructively with the unions.
Yep.
The unions took the road to have, could have very easily elected to defer the strike until
Mhm.
after the new year to take pressure off the consumers
Mhm.
and the companies that rely on the railroads for essential goods and services.
Mhm.
I don't think there would have been any great loss of bargaining power to do it in the spring.
No.
Would because the worst of the rent when the worst of the winter would be behind us. People think
Right.
about that they won't get their Christmas trees or their presents. I mean, they won't get their Christmas trees or the things that they want to buy in time for
Mhm.
Christmas. But nobody talks about the fact that railroads carry most of the heating oil for homes in the Midwest and Northwest.
Yes.
And it's one thing to impact the store shelves of Walmart and Target, and something
Mhm.
entirely different to impact the delivery of fuel oil to homes and businesses.
Mhm.
And so I'm unsympathetic about the union's unwillingness to push the strike beyond the end of the year
Mhm.
and give the worst of the weather a chance to dissipate, and then they can strike in the spring if they wanted to.
Right.
And so, because it's one thing to impact commerce entirely and something else to impact the ability of people to heat their homes.
Yeah.
So
That is.
I got onto a long dissertation, but the bottom line is fundamentally, I think the unions got shafted by Congress because they were denied the ability to negotiate in good faith.
Yeah.
I think the four unions were not bargaining in good faith, and the other eight were.
Mhm.
And so, while I'm sympathetic to the loss of freedom and
Mhm.
the inability to be the masters of your own destiny, I think that there was a little bit of dishonesty on both sides at the end of this whole process.
Right. So then from you've done a lot of discussions when it comes to conflict management. And of course, we've done plenty of episodes discussing conflict management. And this definitely would be exhibit A on said topic. So we know what they did wrong. We know what, from both sides, from the politician side to the union side and all. What could they have done right in order to not be, because I think it's kind of ridiculous for this to have been waited on to this late of an hour in the terms of the economic cycle. Because some of these issues should have been taken care of well in advance of now. So how can they, because I know pretty other companies that might not be in the railroad industry, but I still believe that there are some problems that can be nipped in the bud by proper management and leadership for issues that need to be tackled by the company. So how could things have been done better than how they got handled?
Well, if I recall, there've been times in the past when presidents have been brought in to help mediate these national disputes that have impact on um, transportation, and the ports and the airlines and the railroads. So there have been other strikes where the president has been brought in, and they have been successfully in establishing a cooling off period. Okay,
Mhm.
where the parties are fundamentally in agreement on the majority of issues, and everything is placed on the table, and let's sit for a cooling off period, and they continue work for a period of time. Now, where I was disappointed in the president and his staff is that they had an opportunity to step in much earlier than they did and say, okay, we'll allow you'll proceed in negotiating these labor issues until this date, and then you'll identify everything resolved at that date, and everything will put on the table.
Mhm.
We'll wait 90 days before you come back to the table, and then, or 120 days, and then you come back to the table and you finish negotiating on the items that remain unresolved.
Mhm.
And that has happened before, and that's what I expected to see this time around. But unfortunately, the president and his staff were focusing on other things and didn't pay attention to that in time. And so it was when he came in September, he created something of a cooling off period, but that's not what it was called. It was they deferred things, okay,
Right.
but they didn't defer things long enough, and he didn't sit down with the unions and the company representatives and say, okay, what is on the table now that's been resolved,
Mhm.
okay, and publicly establish that they are in a good place to pause. And he's going to order a pause for 90, 120 days, whatever it should have been.
Mhm.
And then any adverse economic impact would have been minimized until the point in time when the parties could sit down and proceed without crisis.
Right.
So I think that there's a lot of blame to go around,
Mhm.
but it should never have gone to Congress. They had plenty of time to negotiate these things in an orderly manner, and there's plenty of time for the president to step in if a cooling off period was necessary.
Right.
So it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of this lengthy discussion. I have a degree of sympathy for the union because the unions, plural, because they were not able to resolve this for themselves, and the ability to resolve it was taken away from them, and I think that's disappointing.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I can see that. I definitely can. Hell, that's what we've had a deep philosophical discussion on this one here. But I
Yeah.
think that there's
Well,
that
that's what
because
happens.
I do think though that the lessons I get from it as just from a business professional perspective is like before you get to the dead, because there's an ultimate deadline for all projects. You don't want to wait till moments before or in those late hours to try to figure something out because nothing ever goes right when you do. So it's imperative to get the bulk of everything done, if not all of it done, well in advance of that deadline. So that way it's just time, if there's any final negotiations, you can do those and then just complete it in its entirety. There's nothing gained by waiting till the last minute or allowing somebody that's usually working with to drag it out that far. And so that's what I've taken from that and observing and even discussing with you about it, because plenty of things that I work, where my expertise is within a completely different industry, but the things that are transferable is like there's still a process that I have to take to get certain things done, and deadlines that I have to meet to get the projects moved on to the next level. And so if I don't do those things, if I don't handle those things well in advance, scramble around like what we've literally witnessed this past week between Congress, the president, the unions, and the railroad corporations, I'm going to have similar type of problems and similar types of frustrations.
Well,
So it's like how to it's keeping that in mind. Like the first strategy to have in this is to definitely move things along as fast as well. Things that should be easy to negotiate or work through, get that done and get to the tough stuff as quickly as you possibly can. So, because that's what's going to be the holdup. As I have now seen play out, and the fact that even NPR and some of the, who I call like unbiased media coverage has been covering for the last like week or so.
Well, I think that in this day and age, it's better to do more online research about these issues, especially complicated union negotiations that affect multiple industries.
Right.
Television networks work to very, very narrow timeframes. And so if you're looking for something from ABC or CBS or NPR, you're getting just a small slice
of
what the picture looks like. And you're going to have to listen to 5 or 6 different networks providing information in order for you to put together a coherent picture. So I think in this case, I stay away from news reports and focus on what I can find in my literature. I have memberships with, I have, I guess you call them memberships with the Chicago Tribune, the Washington Post, and I subscribe to several online business magazines, and I read through these different sources, and I come up with a picture that helps me understand the totality of the issue.
Right.
And a picture that I would never get simply watching TV.
Right, definitely. Yes. Or radio or the radio.
To pick up on something you said a moment or two back, timing your negotiations is critical. Or timing the issues, timing where in the negotiation you strike at the issues that you want to strike at. That takes practice, and it doesn't come easily. It comes with experience.
Right.
Because the simple truth is that in any negotiation, power is never equal.
No.
Someone will always have a stronger hand.
Right.
And so if you are wanting to resolve an issue as much to your benefit as anything else, you need to know where in that negotiation process you can focus on that and be successful. Because if you do it too early, you spend too much of your ammunition. If you wait too long, you won't have time to use all your ammunition, to use the old warfare example.
Right.
The experience teaches you there's a point in the negotiation where you can be most effective on this particular issue versus that particular issue. And it comes with practice. And if you don't have enough experience negotiating, you may miss the opportunity to get the best of the deal that you can.
Right.
And I think that in the example we've been using today, both sides were guilty of firing too soon and firing too late.
Fair enough. Definitely. Definitely. Well, Jerry, I think that we've covered the topic as thorough as one can. And I do thank you for this wonderful discussion we've had today on Services Cooperative Association and our podcast. So what do you have planned this upcoming week for your business?
Well, I have some things coming up this week that are networking events that I'm going to attend to promote my business. And also there is at least one networking event that I am going to promote the Services Cooperative Association.
Oh, wonderful.
As you said in our intro, the Services Cooperative Association been around for almost 40 years. We will be approaching our 40th anniversary very shortly. And our role has been to help startups, new companies, become more successful. We've done so for during that 40 years, and we have some significant successes that are available on the website. So what we do for a small company is very constructive and very useful. Our job, mine and yours, is to bring some of these new companies in struggling to get started so that we can give them a heads up and a handout. Excuse me, I said there. To give them a heads up about how we can give them a hand up.
Right, definitely. Definitely. Because hand ups are necessary. I mean, in the fog of trying to figure out how to handle a new company, you don't have the experience to know what pitfalls to avoid. And so that's where mentorship and the type of mentorship that Services Cooperative Association provides is extremely key.
And we provide a unique way of dealing with those things that they don't know they need to do.
Exactly. So that's gonna be exciting with what you're gonna be doing with that. For me, I am going to be doing some networking events myself, and I will be with Houston Wire and Cable on Thursday Thursday evening with my lovely wife, and then on Sunday, December 11th, a organization that I've been a part of for over 10 years, the charity benefit concert called Epiphany, is in its 20th season, and so it's kind of interesting. I've actually been with them for half of their existence, and they're going to be having another major concert. Over the last 20 years, a total of 26,780 kids have been helped, and then of course that goes also spilled into their families and all the other. There's about like 8 or 9 different charities that are associated. They get revenue from the charity concert, so the concert is meant to support them in the greater Houston area, and it's prominent on the southwest side. It's going to be over at the Fountain of Praise around Hillcroft and Houston. And I've been proud to be a part of it because of the help that I've seen and changing lives for the kids, their families, really for the last 20 years. And being associated as 10 years, I was their social media manager. And this was my last year as being the full-time social media manager for the event. And it's been an honor working with them on that. And so I'm looking forward to that.
Graduated.
Yeah, I've graduated. It's time for me to, they're like, okay, well, time to retire, sir. Like,
well, no, I suspect that they'll probably have other things that they want you to do. But more important, where can people watching this podcast go to find out information about the Epiphany concert coming up next week?
Well, they can go to tfop.org. And it's the Fountain of Praise website, because that's the church that hosts the Epiphany Benefit Concert. And they actually have a tab on their screen for the Epiphany Benefit Concert. You just click on it says Epiphany, click on that, and it takes you to all things Epiphany. It gives you a little hint of the history and what's going on in the current performers that are going to be there this year. They're going to have Take 6, which is, they've been a legendary a cappella group for over 30 years themselves. Another artist named Kiki Wyatt. And so those are the new, those are artists that we'll be singing that day. If you want to find out more about the Epiphany Benefit Concert, you can go to the YouTube channel that I created for them, called basically is the Epiphany Benefit Concert, and past concerts, past clips of the events are there for people to see and to watch past concerts and be entertained even with that, just to know that it's been a quality show. You can also visit them on the Epiphany Benefit Concert Facebook page and the Epiphany Benefit Concert Instagram page. And so all the things, pictures and information, documentation about what's been going on and staying up to date, that's where you want to go. And I know that it's a challenge when it comes to donating to benefit to charities and such, who is legitimate and who's not. I can say that with this organization and who they are associated with, this is as legitimate as there could ever possibly be. They're upstanding. All 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the charities that they are supposed to help. Nobody holds on to the money. It goes to where it needs to go to make the improvements in the lives that they're supposed to make. So,
great, that's great.
And so given that, what you and I both do with the Services Cooperative Association, it's fair to say that we are about supporting the greater Houston community, both from a business aspect as well as a community development aspect. And it's something that, of course, I'm glad that I get to work shoulder to shoulder with you. And so it seems like this upcoming week, we're going to have some very exciting events that we're going to be a part of. And so, but just to remind everybody that we still also have the CrossRoads Business Building Breakfast. We meet at 7:30 in the morning, 9311 Katy Freeway, at the corner of Katy Freeway and Echo Lane, in the Kroger Shopping Center at the Corner Bakery Cafe. In there, you'll see me. If Jerry's there, we'll see Jerry there as well as the founder, Dean Green. And anybody and any of the other business owners and guests that come along as well for the workshop / breakfast, get a meal, learn something, be able to take it back, improve your job, your career, as well as those around you as well. So we give it to be a benefit, and then you can benefit others. So make sure to stay tuned. You can always follow us at the Services Cooperative Association YouTube channel as well, where all the episodes for the Services Cooperative Association has been posted. Jerry, where can people find out more about you and the CDC Integrated Services?
Well, I'm always happy to let people know that CDC Integrated Services is a conflict solutions services company. We provide a range of conflict solution processes and techniques for other companies to use to resolve workplace conflict. That is where we specialize in workplace conflict, and we assist other companies in dealing with those things that they are not able to resolve through their own systems and processes. And so we can be found at cdc-mediation.com. And the number is 832-452-8537. We are the bridge that spans the divide between companies and individuals in conflict.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Jerry Cooper, for being the co-host on Services Cooperative Association podcast. It's great to see you again, like as always. And I look forward to seeing and hearing from the fans that watch and listen to the Services Cooperative Association podcast. And please stop by for the CrossRoads Business Building Breakfast that happens every Wednesday morning at 7:30 a.m. Jerry, take care of yourself. Look forward to seeing you again next week or so. And please tell the missus I said hello as well, okay?
Okay, you have a good afternoon. It was nice visiting with you.
All right, nice visiting with you too. All right, have a good day. Bye.
You too.